This video will provide you with an insight into some of the advanced features of the Dulux DuSpec Add-In for Revit. The main advanced features of the add-in can be accessed from within the Settings menu, within Revit Setting. Within here, the function Push DuSpec Fields into Revit Element Parameters is available. To recap, the DuSpec application contains all of the material information present in every element of your Revit project that it has gathered while syncing. It also contains all of the DuSpec information you have assigned to these project elements. This means that activating the Push function allows the DuSpec application to push the material and DuSpec information back into your Revit model elements as project parameters. Once this information is available natively in your Revit project, you are able to leverage and manipulate the data. It is now easy to create native paint specification schedules, tag material and DuSpec information in any view, and create advanced view-based filters. Let's now turn the Push function on. It is off by default. By clicking on the Edit DuSpec Fields pushed into Revit Parameters button, we are now able to review and change the default parameters, listed under the Scheduled Fields column. The parameters with the prefix DS denote DuSpec parameters, and the two bottom parameters, Revit Material Name and Revit Material ID, are actually Revit material information pulled from your Revit project into the DuSpec add-in. There are often many materials applied to elements within your Revit project. Pushing parameters back into your project creates a separate line item listing for each material present in the element. By default, we are only going to be syncing, getting information for the walls, floors and ceilings in the project, and hence only pushing information back into the walls, floors and ceilings. Let's now activate other elements syncing to the add-in. This will add quite a lot of extra information that the DuSpec application will have to look at in your project. The add-in will have to report back on the materials used on each element. In addition, the add-in will now have to push information back into these additional elements. This additional analysis required when other elements is activated will increase syncing times. Once we have synced the application, you will note that elements within your Revit project now have additional project parameters. Looking at this wall, you will notice that the wall has a different material applied to each side. If we now scroll through the wall properties, you will see the extra DuSpec project parameters. The initial parameters are provided in a list format, with each value separated by a vertical line. The information supplied in this format is ideal for further manipulation in Revit. Following the list parameters are the parameters that break the wall down based on materials applied to the wall. As you can see, material number 1 is Caddy Scroll, and it has the DuSpec AUSD 0002 Dulux Wash and Wear Gloss applied to that face of the wall. As we scroll down, material number 2 is Carter's Scroll, and it has DuSpec AUSD 0002 Dulux Wash and Wear Low Sheen applied to the other face of the wall. One very handy aspect of now having these parameters in your Revit project is the ability to tag the information. If we now go to the floor plan view of the wall, we can start to apply tags that we created earlier. Our tag is set up to display the DuSpec name, DuSpec code, material name and material ID. As demonstrated, it is now possible to tag paint specification and material information on both sides of a wall in floor plan view. This has only been made possible via the DuSpec add-in's ability to push information back into your Revit project as project parameters. You are also able to apply the same tagging methodology in elevation views. Let's now take a look at the native Revit paint specification scheduling using the pushed DuSpec add-in information. What we have created is a schedule outlining all of the DuSpecs applied to the elements in this view. If we now look for Mark 19, it's this desk here. You are now able to review the DuSpec information associated to it in a native Revit schedule format. This is ideal for creating wall, floor, ceiling and other project element paint specification schedules. Another advanced use of the add-in's push feature is filtering. Here we have our 3D view, and what we have created below is a 3D view with a view filter applied. This filter filters out all of the elements except for the elements that contain the material cutter scroll. This same principle can also be applied to elements that have a DuSpec applied to them. Before we move on, let's look at how we created this filter inside of Filters. Select Edit. You can now see what we're doing. We are looking at the DuSpec material name list, and then from there, all we have done is added the vertical line and typed in the name. Make sure you get the name exactly right. You can also use the material name list ID if you know the material ID of that particular material. Dulux Cutter Scroll. Now, in the 3D view below, we are filtering out all of the elements that have a DuSpec applied. These elements have DuSpecs applied to them. Here you can see the DuSpec present in the wall's properties and Dulux Wash and Wear Low Sheen on plasterboard. In the next 3D view, we have created a view filter that represents all of the elements that don't yet have a DuSpec applied, in halftone with a transparency applied. This means that as soon as you apply a DuSpec to these elements and sync the DuSpec add-in, the objects will appear in full tone without the transparency. Now that we have applied the DuSpec to this element and synchronized the application, you can see that it is no longer transparent and half-toned. The element is now shown as solid, because it has a DuSpec applied as demonstrated by the pushed project parameters present here. Dulux Weather Shield Low Sheen on new timber. This concludes the overview of some of the advanced uses of the DuSpec add-in for Revit. Should you require further information about the add-in, we suggest you reference the overview help document located here.